Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I hope you're having a good time here. I know it's been quite a while since we last did a story night, so we are going to be doing one that I'm rather fond of. Of course, people who know me fairly well know that I am a big fan of Hans Christian Andersen's tales. He's a national treasure of Denmark for a reason. And the Snow Queen is one that when I was really young, I didn't necessarily get into. Like, I tried a couple of times and it just didn't hold my interest. But as I've grown older, I've really become quite fond of it. The story starts off a little bit slow, and you're never quite sure kind of where it's going. But by the time you get into it a distance, it becomes a very straightforward fairy tale. And I think one of the most remarkable things about the book is how little time we actually spend with the Snow Queen, the titular character. In so many ways, she becomes this figure of antagonism in the background, but her character isn't really explored at all. So as we go through here, I am doing the simulcast again tonight, but we're going to be mostly reading the story. And I'm super excited that Fern picked this one, partly because I'm always happy to, get to do something with Fern, but because this is a really good story, and of all the ones that he could have picked, I think this was an absolutely fantastic choice. So, with that, let's go ahead and begin the story here. The Snow Queen in 7 stories. Well, now we're going to begin. When we are at the end of the story, we shall know more than we do now. For he was a bad troll. He was one of the very worst, for he was the devil himself. One day, he was in very good humor, for he had made a mirror which had this peculiarity, that everything good and beautiful which was shown in the mirror shrank to almost nothing, but whatever was worthless or ugly or terrible was very distinct and looked bigger and worse than ever. The most lovely landscapes seen in this mirror looked like boiled spinach. Ew. And the nicest people were hideous, or stood on their heads and had no stomachs. Their faces were so twisted that you wouldn't know them, and anybody who had a freckle could be sure it would cover both nose and mouth. Hello, Necromancer, welcome in. I'm doing quite well, thank you. That was very amusing, the devil said. When a good, pious thought passed through the person's mind, a grin came in the mirror, so that the devil chuckled at his artistic invention. Those who went to the school for trolls, for he kept a school for trolls, declared everywhere that a miracle had happened. For now, they said, one could see for the first time how the world and the people really looked. They ran about with the mirror, and at last there was not a single country nor person that had been twisted in it. Now they wanted to fly up to heaven to sneer and scoff at the angels and God themselves. The higher they flew with the mirror, the more it grinned. They could scarcely hold on to it. They flew higher and higher, and the mirror trembled so terribly that it fell out of their hands to the earth, where it shattered into a whole bunch of pieces. And now this mirror made much more unhappiness than before. For some of the pieces were hardly as large as a grain of sand, and these flew around in the wide world, and whenever they flew into anyone's eye, they stuck there, and those people saw everything wrongly, or had only eyes for the bad side of a thing, for every little piece of the mirror had kept the same power which the whole looking-glass had had. A few persons even got a bit of the mirror into their hearts, and this was just perfectly awful. That heart got to be like a lump of ice. Some of the pieces were so large that they were used as window panes, but it was a bad thing to look at one's friends through these panes. Other pieces were made into spectacles, and the things went wrong when those people put spectacles on and wanted to see clearly and very just. The evil one laughed till his stomach cracked, and that tickled him so nicely. But out in the world, some little pieces of the glass were still flying around in the air, and we'll hear about that shortly. Giant Celine not fit in the box? Oh my goodness, what happened there? Hold on just a second. Alright, I should be fitting back in my box now. So Loki, thank you very much for letting me know that I had apparently grown several sizes this day. Not an ideal situation, but I appreciate knowing about it. You know, I'm big here on the internet, but not that big. Alright, let's see here. We'll hear about the mirror in just a moment. The second story, a little boy and a little girl. Also, welcome in, Soliloquy. Thank you for joining us tonight. In the big city, where there are so many houses and so many people, there isn't enough room for everyone to have a little garden, and therefore most people have to be satisfied with some flowers in flower pots. There were two poor children who had a garden a little larger than a flower pot. They were not brother and sister, but they loved each other just as much as if they had been. Their parents lived close to each other in two garrets, and there where the roof of one house joined at the others, and where the gutter ran along the eaves, there was a little window in each house. One had only to step across the gutter to get from one window to the other. Each family had a big box outside, and in that they grew kitchen herbs that they used, and a little rose bush. There was one in each box, and they grew beautifully. Caffrey, thank you very much for the compliment. I really appreciate it. Now, the parents thought of placing the boxes across the gutter so that they reached from one window to another and looked just like two banks of flowers. Darkbug, hello, welcome in. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's get you shouted out here real quick. If you're not already familiar with the Texas Toebiter, he is a fantastic artist, somebody who does some really cool drawings. I've seen him doing more Sonic the Hedgehog personas lately, but he also does some really cool comic art. So let's make sure that if you aren't already, you give Darkbug Art a follow. Please and thank you. Welcome in, Bug. Thank you for the like. The peas hung down over the boxes, and the rose bushes grew long branches which clustered around the windows and bent down toward each other. It was almost like an honor gate of flowers and leaves. Hello, Necromancer. Bonjour. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for appreciating my face, Caffrey. I would hope you appreciate my storytelling and some other things just as much, but good to know my face is what you appreciate. As the boxes were very high and the children knew that they mustn't climb up there, they were often allowed to come out between the boxes and to sit on their little benches under the roses. And there they had a wonderful time playing. In the winter, that fun stopped. The windows were sometimes frozen all over. But when they warmed up copper pennies on the stove and held the hot coins against the frozen pane, this made a lovely peephole so round and perfectly clear that behind it peeped a pretty mild eye, and from each window it was this way that the little boy and the little girl, the boy's name was Kay, and the little girl was Gerda. In the summer, they could get over to each other with one jump, but in the winter they had to go down the many stairs and up the many stairs while the snow was drifting outside. "Those are the white bees swarming," said the old grandmother. "Do they have a queen bee too?" asked the little boy, for he knew that there is one among the real bees. "Yes, they have one," said the grandmother. "She always flies where they swarm thickest. She is the largest of them all, and she never stays quietly on the earth. She flies back again to the black sky. Many winter's nights she flies through the streets of town and looks in at the windows, and they freeze in such a queer way and look like flowers." "Yes, I know, I've seen that," said both the children, and now they knew it was true. "Can the Snow Queen come in here?" asked the little girl. "Just let her try. I'll put her on the warm stove and then she'll melt." But the grandmother smoothed his hair and told some other stories. In the evening, when little Kay was at home and half undressed, he climbed up on the chair by the window and peeped through the little hole. A few flakes of snow were falling outside, and one of them, the largest of them all, stayed on the edge of one of the flower boxes. The snowflakes grew larger and larger, and at last it turned into a whole woman, clothed in the finest white gauze, made out of millions of star-like snowflakes. She was beautiful and delicate, but of ice, of dazzling, glittering ice. Still, she was alive. Her eyes looked like two clear stars, but there was no peace nor rest in them. She nodded toward the window and beckoned with her hand. The little boy was frightened and jumped down from the chair. Then it seemed as if a large bird flew by outside past the window. Next day there was a clear frost, then there was a thaw, and then the spring came. The sun shone, the green peeped out, the swallows built nests, the windows were opened, and the little children sat again in their garden high up in the gutter over all the flowers. It is a cool bee indeed, Necromancer, you're not wrong. The roses had never bloomed so wonderfully as that summer. The little girl had learned a hymn, and there was something in that about roses, and, in speaking of roses, she thought of her own, and she sang it to the little boy, and he sang too. "The roses in the valley grow, where we the infant Christ shall know." And then the children held each other by the hand, kissed the roses, looked at God's bright sunshine, and spoke to it as if the Christ child were there. What beautiful summer days those were, and how lovely it was to be outside among the fresh rose bushes, which seemed as if they would never stop blooming. Kay and Gerda were sitting and looking at the picture book with the animals and birds. Then it was the clock was just striking 5 on the church tower that Kay said, "Ouch! There was a sting in my heart, and now I've got something in my eye." The little girl put her arm around his neck. He blinked his eyes. No, there was nothing at all to be seen. I think it is gone," he said. But it was not gone. It was just one of those grains of glass which sprang from the mirror, the troll mirror that we remember well, the nasty glass that made everything great and good which was mirrored in it seem small and mean, but in which the mean and the wicked things were brought out in relief, and every fault was noticeable. Poor little Kay had also got a splinter right in his heart, and it would now soon become like a lump of ice. It didn't hurt him now, but it was there. "What are you crying for?" he asked. "You look ugly like that. There's nothing the matter with me." "Oh, look," he suddenly shouted. "That rose is worm-eaten, and this one is all crooked. After all, they're disgusting roses. They're like the box they stand in." And he kicked the box hard with his foot and tore both roses off. "Kay, what are you doing?" cried the little girl. And when he saw she was scared, he tore off another rose and then ran in his window away from darling little Gerda. When she afterward came out with her picture book, he said it was only fit for babies, and when the grandmother told stories, he always came in with a but, and when he could manage, he would get behind her, put on a pair of spectacles, and talk just as she did. It was just like her, and the people laughed at him. Soon he could imitate the way everybody in the street talked and walked. Everything that was peculiar or ugly about them, Kay could imitate, and the people said, "That boy must certainly have a remarkable head." But it was the glass that he had got in his eye, the glass that stuck in his heart, that made him tease even little Gerda, who loved him with all her hearts. His games were now quite different from what they were before. They were very sensible. One winter day, when it snowed, he came out with a big magnifying glass, held up a corner of his blue coat, and let the snowflakes fall on it. "Now, look at the glass, Gerda," he said. And every flake of snow was much larger and looked like a splendid flower or a star with 10 points. It was beautiful to look at. "See how clever that is," said Kay. "That's much more interesting than real flowers, and there's not a single fault in them. They're quite regular until they begin to melt." Soon after, Kay came in thick gloves and with his sled on his back. He shouted right into Gerda's ear, "They said I could go to the big square where the other boys play." And away he went. Over on the square, the boldest among the boys often tied their sleds to the country people's carts, and then they rode with them a good way. It was fine. When they were in the midst of playing, a big sled came. It was painted all white, and in it sat somebody wrapped in a woolly white fur and with a woolly white cap. The sled drove twice around the square, and Kay quickly got his little sled tied to it, and so he drove on with it. It went faster and faster, straight into the next street. The one who was driving turned around and nodded in a friendly way to Kay. It was as if they knew each other. Each time when Kay wanted to untie his little sled, the stranger nodded again, and then Kay stayed where he was, and they drove right out through the town gate. Then the snow began to fall so fast that the boy couldn't see his own hand while he rushed along. Then he quickly let go the rope to get loose from the big sled, but that didn't help. His little sled was tied tight to the other, and they went like the wind. Then he shouted very loudly, but no one heard him, and the snow whirled and the sled flew along. Every now and then it gave a jump, and they seemed to be flying over the hedges and ditches. He was very frightened. He wanted to say his prayers, but he could only remember the multiplication table. The snowflakes got larger and larger. At last, they looked like big white hens. All at once they jumped aside, the big sled stopped, and the person who had driven it rose up. The fur and the cap were made all of snow. It was a lady, tall and straight and dazzlingly white. It was the Snow Queen. "We came a good long way," she said, "but what are you cold for? Crawl into my bearskin." And she seated him beside her in her own sled, and wrapped the fur around him, and he felt as if he were sinking into a snowdrift. "Are you still cold?" she asked, and then she kissed him on the forehead. Oh, it was colder than ice. It went right into his heart, and half of that was already a lump of ice. He felt as if he were going to die, but only for a moment. Then it helped him, and he didn't notice the cold around him. My sled! Don't forget my sled!" That was the first thing he thought of, and it was tied to one of the white hens, and it flew behind him with the sled on its back. The Snow Queen kissed Kay again, and then he forgot little Gerda, his grandmother, and all the people back at home. Now you won't get any more kisses, for if you did, I should kiss you to death." Kay looked at her. She was so beautiful he couldn't imagine a wiser or more lovely face. Now she didn't seem to be made of ice as she did when he sat at the window and beckoned to him. In his eyes, she was perfect. He didn't feel scared at all. He told her that he could do mental arithmetic and even fractions, and that he knew how many square miles in a country and how many inhabitants. And she always smiled, and then it seemed to him that what he knew was not enough, and he looked up into the big, big dome of the air, and she flew with him, flew high up on the black clouds, and the storm was whistling and roaring. It was like the singing of ancient ballads. They flew over the forests and lakes, over land and sea. Below them, the cold wind whistling, the wolves howled, the snow sparkled. Over it flew the black, screaming crows. But above it, the moon was shining, large and clear, and Kay looked at it with the long, long winter night. In the daytime, he slept at the feet of the Snow Queen. Third story, The Flower Garden of the Woman Who Could Conjure. But how did little Gerda get along when Kay didn't come anymore? Where could he be? No one knew, no one could tell her. The boys could only tell that they had seen him tie his sled to a fine large one which had driven along the street and out at the town gate. Nobody knew what had become of him. Many tears flowed, and little Gerda wept long and bitterly. Then they said he was dead. He had been drowned in the river that ran close by their town. Oh, those were very long, dark winter days. But now spring came with warmer sunshine. Hello, Brian. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us tonight. Kay is dead and gone, said little Gerda. I don't believe it, said the sunshine. He is dead and gone, she said to the swallows. We don't believe it, they answered, and at last little Gerda didn't believe it herself. I will put on my new red shoes, she said one morning, the ones that Kay never has seen, and then I will go down to the river and ask it about him. It was still very early. She kissed the old grandmother, who was still asleep, put on her red shoes, and went all alone out of the town gate toward the river. Thank you for the boobs, Brian and Caffrey. I really appreciate them. Beans? I'm not sure what you mean by beans, soliloquy. Is it true that you have taken my little playmate? I will give you my red shoes if you will give him back to me. And it seemed to her as if the waves nodded quite strangely, and then she took her red shoes that she liked best of anything she had, and threw them both into the river. But they fell close to the shore, and the little waves carried them back to her to the land. It seemed as if the river would not take from her the dearest thing she owned, since of course it hadn't taken little Kay. But she thought she hadn't thrown those shoes far enough out, so she climbed into a boat that lay among the reeds. So she went to the other end of the boat and threw the shoes out. But the boat was not bound fast, and the movement she made it glided away from the shore. She noticed it and hurried to get back, but before she reached the other end of the boat was a yard away from the bank, and now it drifted faster away. Then little Gerda was very much frightened and began to cry, but no one heard her except the sparrows, and they couldn't carry her ashore, but they flew up along the edge and sang as if to cheer her up. Here we are, here we are. The boat drifted along with the current, and little Gerda sat quite still, with only her stockings on her feet. Her little red shoes floated along behind her, but they couldn't catch up with the boat, which went much faster. Hello, Raiders, and welcome in. Thank you for joining us tonight. Can we get a shout out for Kibo3, please? How was your stream? Did you have a good time? What did you get up to? All for a reader raid train? Well, thank you very much for joining us. We are reading The Snow Queen tonight, the H.C. Andersen tale. Oh my goodness, a squat redeem. Right as we get some raiders in. Pillage and plunder, Rapier? I shall do my best. Alright. But yes, thank you very much for joining in here with us. Brian, I don't have anything to save. I think you'll have to refund yourself those points. But since we've got the squats to do, we'll go ahead and do some squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There you go. You're reading Changing Planes by Ursula K. Le Guin. Ooh, my goodness. I haven't actually gotten a chance to read anything by Le Guin, but I've heard that her writing is absolutely fantastic. I'd love to know what you were thinking of the book as you went through it. Who did I say this was, by the way? So I'm Celine Heidelman, and the book is The Snow Queen by H.C Andersen. Oh, thank you for the... I don't actually know where I have a pride flag in here, but I'm glad you like it. Need a bookmark that lasts until the end of the page. Alright, let me see if I can get a bookmark added in here real quick. Let's see. I don't know that this one has bookmarks. Oh, I guess it does. So there we go. I will put that mark there for you, Brian. Right now, Ray Pierre is trying to make a comic, but first has to redesign Ray. Well, I'm not necessarily the best at drawing, but I'd love to see the comic when you get there. Oh, that in one. Yes, thank you. I actually designed that a while ago based upon some flags that were in a messaging app that we were using at a company I was working for. I liked the overall shape and figured out fairly quickly how to get some SVG stripes working in it. So we should be able to generate most of the pride flags with that. And I don't remember if I've put those in here or not. Thoroughly enjoyed Changing Planes. You love Le Guin's writing. It's almost an anthology of different planes of existence. That you have to go to an airplane, or airport to go to, but you wouldn't travel via plane. You wouldn't travel the planes in a plane? Well, I suppose that's perfectly reasonable. But I'm glad you're having a good time reading it. How am I doing? I'm doing quite well. I was sick for quite a few days there, but I'm finally over it and back to doing things, and I'm delighted to get a chance to doing a reading stream here tonight. It was very pretty on both shores. Lovely flowers. Why is this not working? Oop, there we go. Old trees and slopes with sheep and cows, but not a human in sight. Perhaps the river will carry me to little Kay, thought Gerda, and she became more cheerful and stood up, and for many hours she watched the beautiful green banks. Then she came to a big cherry orchard, in which stood a little house with queer red and blue windows. It had a thatched roof, and outside stood 2 wooden soldiers who presented arms to those who sailed past. It does sound pleasant indeed. And Gerda called to them, for she thought that they were alive, but of course they didn't answer. She came quite close to them. The river carried the boat toward the shore. Gerda called still louder, and then out of the house came an old, old woman leaning on a hooked stick. She had on a large sunbonnet painted over with the loveliest flowers. "You poor little child," said the old woman. "How did you ever come out of the big fast river and float so far out into the wide world?" And then the old woman stepped right into the water, hooked the boat with her stick, drew it to land, and lifted little Gerda out. And Gerda was glad to be on dry land again, though she felt a little afraid of the strange old woman. "Come and tell me who you are and how you came to be here." And Gerda told her everything, and the old woman shook her head and said, "Hum, hum." And when Gerda had told everything and asked if she had not seen little Kay, the woman said that she had not. He had come by, but that he probably would come soon. Gerda mustn't be sad, but must taste her cherries and look at her flowers. They were prettier than any picture book, for each one of them could tell a story. Then she took Gerda by the hand, and they went into the little house, and the old woman locked the door. "Oh good, you don't need to shrink down into my bloodstream and kill the virus then?" I see. Well, thank you for considering a magic school bus adventure to make me feel better, Necromancer. I really appreciate it. The windows were still up very high, and the panes were red, blue, and yellow. The daylight shone so strangely in there, in all colors. On the table stood the finest cherries, and Gerda ate as many of them as she liked, for she wasn't afraid of that. While she was eating them, the old lady combed her hair with a golden comb, and her hair curled and shone so nice and yellow around the friendly little face that was so round it looked like a rose. "I've been waiting for such a sweet little girl for a long time," said the old woman. "Now you shall see how well we two are going to get along." And while she was combing her hair, Gerda forgot about her adopted brother Kay more and more. For this old woman knew something about witchcraft, but she wasn't a wicked witch. She was only witched a little for her own amusement, and now she wanted to keep little Gerda. Therefore she went out into the gardens, stretched out her stick toward all the rose bushes, and no matter how beautifully they were blooming, they all sank into the earth, and no one could tell where they had stood. The old woman was afraid that if the little girl saw roses, she would think of her own and remember little Kay and run away. Raining and thunder there tonight, perfect reading weather. Ooh, especially when we get to some of the intense parts of the book. I do hope that you're safe there, though. I know rain can be a bit heavy in some places, and we've had tornadoes in others, so may the rain be pleasant and enhance your experience as we read. Now she took Gerda out into the flower garden. What a fragrance and what loveliness! Every conceivable flower was there in full bloom. There were some for every season. No picture book could be gayer and prettier. Gerda jumped high for joy and played till the sun went down behind the high cherry trees. Then she was put into a lovely bed with pink red silk pillows stuffed with blue violets, and she slept there and dreamed as wonderfully as any queen on her wedding day. There's a tornado warning where you are, Brian? Oh dear. Well, I hope that you stay safe. The next day, she played again with the flowers in the warm sunshine, and in this way many days went by. Gerda knew every flower, but as many as there were of them, it still seemed to her that one was missing. But which one she didn't know. Then one day she happened to be sitting and looking at the old woman's sunbonnet with the painted flowers, and the prettiest one there was a rose. The old woman had forgotten to get that one off the hat when she put the others down in the earth. But that's how it is when you don't stop to think. What? Aren't there any roses here? Said Gerda. And she jumped in among the flower beds and searched, but there was not one to be found. Then she sat down and cried. Her hot tears fell just on a spot where a rosebush lay buried, and when the warm tears moistened the earth, the bush at once grew up as blooming as it had when it had sunk, and Gerda hugged it and kissed the roses and thought of the beautiful roses at home, and with them of little Kay. Your plan is to fight the tornado off, Brian? Well, I always approve of engaging in glorious combat. Just make sure that you keep yourself safe. I don't want you coming back on your shield. I want you coming back carrying it. Oh, we've been made so late, said the little girl. I was looking for Kay. Don't you know where he is? She asked the roses. Do you think he is dead and gone? He is not dead, the roses answered. We have been in the ground. All the dead people are there, but Kay is not there. Thank you, said little Gerda, and she went over to the other flowers, looked into their cups, and asked, Don't you know where little Kay is? And good luck against the Twister. Remember, the only way to stop a tornado is a vacuum. I think Pecos Bill might have something to say about that, Ray Pierre. What if you come in riding upon your shield from the sky? That sounds fantastic, Brian. If you want to ride your shield through the sky and come down in a blaze of glory, I can't fault you for that. Like, that just sounds a fantastic time. I approve. But every flower stood in the sun thinking only of its own story or fairy tale. Gerda heard many, many of them, but not one knew anything of Kay. Well, what did the tiger lily say? Do you hear the drum, Tum-Tum? There are only 2 notes always, Tum-Tum. Hear the morning song of the women, hear the call of the priests. The Hindu widow stands in her long red mantle on the funeral pyre. The flames rise up around her and her dead husband, but the Hindu woman is thinking of the living one here in the circle of him whose eyes burn hotter than the flames, whose fiery glances reach her heart more than the flames which are soon to burn her body to ashes. Can the flame of the heart die in the flame of the funeral pyre? Do your favor surf on the shield? Sounds like a fun time. Fun fact, you've actually ridden a wave machine until they turned it off? Well, that sounds like a good time too, Brian. I don't understand that at all, said little Gerda. That's my story, said the lily. Well, what do the convolvulas say? Above the narrow rock road towers an old baronial castle. The ivy grows thickly over the old red walls, leaf by leaf around the balcony, and there stands a beautiful girl. And she bends over the balustrade and looks down at the road. No rose is fresher on its stem than she, no apple blossom borne by the wind from its tree floats more lightly along. How her costly silks rustle. Is he never coming? Do you mean Kay? I'm only speaking of my own story, my dream, replied the convolvulus. An insane question. Do I like music, and what kind of music am I into? I love music. I honestly enjoy most forms of music. I grew up listening to a mixture of pop and classic music. My parents were quite big on things like Alan Parsons Project, Tears for Fears, Suzanne Vega, and so I've got a fair amount of those mixed in with things that were popular when I was young. So your Natalie Imbruglia, your Smash Mouth, Sheryl Crow, Shania Twain was also mixed in there. When I got to be rebellious, I went for country music. That was, of course, what my father would call teaching the radio bad habits. So I actually got interested in country music just before bro country really kind of took over. So things like Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy were very big when I was listening to country music. So that was kind of where I got a lot of my background there. And then later on, I got introduced to Death Cab for Cutie, The Killers, a lot of indie rock type music. And so those also found their way into my heart. And these days, yeah, I listen to quite a bit through Pandora. Blue Stone is a band that I got into when I was in university. And they're electronica. So I've got a fairly wide, broad background, but I'm not particularly skilled in terms of like musical theory. You don't really listen to country? That's totally fair, Brian. Like I said, my father doesn't listen to country. Mr. Brightside almonds are firing. Oh, Mr. Brightside's a fantastic one. Tornadoes are made of air and the opposite element is earth, so you suggest throwing rocks at the tornado. I think the tornado will throw rocks back if you try that. Might not be the best move. Excuse me. What does the little snowdrop say? Between the trees, ropes hold a long board that is a swing. Two pretty little girls in dresses white as snow and long green silk are sitting. Long green silk ribbons flying from their hats are sitting on it, swinging. Their brother, who is bigger than they are, stands in the swing, and he has put his arm around the rope to hold himself, for in one hand he has a little saucer, and the other a clay pipe. He is blowing bubbles. The swing flies, and the bubbles rise with beautiful changing colors. The last still hangs from the pipe bowl, swaying in the wind. The swing flies on, the little black dog, the light of the bubbles, stand up on his hind legs and wants to be taken into the swing. It flies on, and the dog falls, barks and is angry. They fooled it, and the bubble bursts. A swinging board and a bursting foam picture. That is my song. Tornadoes all but refuse to land where Kibo is. Wise old earthbenders who spent era building defenses against the strong winds. I approve. Keeping yourself safe from inclement weather is an important thing. Ray Pierre listens to almost everything? Well, fantastic. We'll have to do some karaoke night one of these nights and just get to explore some of the music that people enjoy. You listen to country music if you like the lyrics, Brian? I see. Well, that's good to know. It may be very pretty what you're telling, but you're so sad about it, and you don't mention little Kay at all. What do the hyacinths say? There were three beautiful sisters, so clear and delicate. The dress of one was red, that of the second blue, and that of the third all white. Hand in hand they danced by the calm lake in the bright moonlight. They were not elves, they were the daughters of men. The scents were so sweet, and the girls were lost in the forest. The scents grew stronger. 3 coffins with the 3 beautiful maidens lying in them glided from the wood thicket across the lake. The glowworms flew, gleaming about them like little hovering lights. Are the dancing girls sleeping, or are they dead? The flower scent stays. They are corpses, and the evening bell tolls over the dead. Kibo likes country roads. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. Maybe that's not the one you mean. like Dolly Parton, Brian? Well, that's good to know. I don't actually know any Dolly Parton songs offhand. Ray Pierre's country set comes from either Dolly Parton, Lady, or Country Roads. You don't know if Pantera or Leonard Skinner counts? I'm not sure either. I try not to worry too much about genres. Definitely the one you mean, but I quit right before the best line. Alright, well, there's a sing redeem if you really want to go into it. You mean it's nice that she's kind, but she does make nice songs? Well, also fair. Like anything that gets your imagination going. Ooh, songs are so wonderful for imagination. Sometimes they paint pictures that are really complete, sometimes they're incomplete, but there's so much that you can explore in the world with your imagination. Alright, let's see here. You make me very sad, said little Gerda. Your scent is so strong, I can't help thinking of those dead girls. Oh, is little Kay really dead? The roses have been down in the earth, and they say no. Ding dong, rang the hyacinth bells. We are not tolling for little Kay, we don't know him. We only sing our song, the only one we know. And Gerda went to the buttercup that was shining among its glistening green leaves. You are a little bright sun, said Gerda. Tell me, if you know, where I can find my play brother. And the buttercup shone so gaily and looked back at Gerda. What song might the buttercup sing? Well, that wasn't about Kay either. A story in your head, and you listen and you love it. Very true, Necromancer. In a little yard, the clear sun shone warm on the first day of spring. The sunbeams glided down the white wall of the neighboring house. Close by grew the first yellow flowers, glittering in gold in the warm sun's rays. The old grandmother sat out of doors in her chair. Her granddaughter, the poor, pretty servant, was coming home for a short visit. She kissed her grandmother. There was a gold, heart's gold, in that blessed kiss. Gold in the mouth, gold in the eyes, gold up there in the bright sunrise. Well, that's my little story, said the buttercup. Oh, my poor grandma, sighed Gerda. She must be lonesome for me and sad about me, just as she was about little Kay. But I shall soon go home and bring Kay with me. There's no use in my asking the flowers. They only know their own song. They can't tell me anything. And then she pinned her little dress so that she could run faster. But the jonquil struck against her leg as she sprang over it, and she stopped to look at the tall yellow flower and asked, Perhaps you know something? I have just been informed I need to make some small tweaks to my stream here so that we can let somebody engage. Let's see if I can find the right setting here. This should take me just a moment. There's a button that should allow... Maybe over here? Alright. We will set that up. Fern, if you want to try again now, go ahead and give it a refresh, and you should be able to put your messages in. They won't necessarily show up in the chat box here, but I will still get them, and I'll do my best to respond to them. Celine, want to know something. What do you have in mind, Brian? Alright, back here. Hydrate! That is a very good thing to know, Brian. Thank you. That is a nice little water sip. Thank you very much. Alright. Oh, that's That's not supposed to happen. How long has my cursor been showing up on here? My goodness. Sorry, folks, that was not supposed to be visible, but I think we've got that sorted now. So, everything should be good. Hydration complete, and yep. And she bent right down to the flower, and what did it say? "I can see myself, I can see myself," said the jonquil. Oh, what smell I have! Up in the little room in the gable stands the little half-dressed dancing girl. She stands sometimes on one leg, sometimes on two. She kicks at the whole world. She's nothing but a snare for the eyes. She pours water out of the teapot on a bit of the stuff. It is her bodice. Cleanliness is a good thing. Her white frock hangs on a hook. It has been washed in the teapot too, and dried on the roof. She puts it back on and ties her saffron handkerchief around her neck, and the dress looks all the whiter. Kick high! Look how she struts on one stem. I can see myself. I can see myself. I don't care about all that, said Gerda. That's nothing to tell me. And then she ran to the end of the garden. The door was locked, but she pulled at the rusty catch until it got loose, and the door sprang open, and little Gerda ran in her bare feet out into the wide world. She looked back 3 times, but no one came after her, and at last she could run no longer, and sat down on a big stone, and when she looked around, the summer was over. It was late autumn. Nobody could know that in the beautiful garden, where there had always been sunshine and the flowers of every season always bloomed. Oh dear, how late I am, said Gerda. It's already autumn, so I mustn't rest again. And she got up to go on. Oh, how sore and tired her little feet were. All around it looked cold and bleak. The long willow leaves were quite yellow, and the mist drooped from them like water. One leaf after another dropped. Only the sole thorn still bore fruit, but it was so sour and puckered the mouth all up. Oh, how grey and gloomy it was in the wide world. And so we come to the 4th story, The Prince and the Princess. Gerda had to rest again. Then a big crow came hopping across the snow just opposite from the spot where she was sitting. This crow had long been sitting and looking at her and wagging its head. Now it said, "Caw-caw, how do you do?" It couldn't say it any better, but it felt very friendly toward the little girl and asked where she was going all alone in the wide world. The word alone Gerda understood very well, and felt how much it meant, and she told the crow the whole story of her life and asked if it had seen Kay. This is a good bedtime story. Shame you're at work and can't sleep for 7 hours yet. Well, there's always the buzz. These should be automatically archived on YouTube if you want to go that route. And I can always take a little bit of time and clean some of these up to make them a bit more book-worthy rather than archives of streams. But thank you. And the crow nodded very thoughtfully and said, "It might be. It might be." "Oh, what? Do you think so?" cried the little girl, and nearly squeezed the crow to death, she kissed it so. "Gently, gently," said the crow. "I think I know. I think it might be little Kay, but he has probably forgotten you with the princess." "Does he live with a princess?" asked Gerda. "Yes, listen. But it's so hard for me to speak your language. If you know the crow language, I can talk much better." "No, I never learned it. But my grandmother understood it and could speak the P language too. Oh, if only I had learned it." Brian needs to head out though. Well, thank you for joining in, Brian. It's always good to have you here. Appreciate you letting me know as you head out. We hope to see you back when you're ready. Have a wonderful time. "That doesn't matter," said the crow. I shall tell you as well as I can, and that won't be very well. And then the crow told what it knew. In the kingdom where we're sitting now lives a princess who is marvelously clever, but then she has read all the newspapers in the world and has forgotten them again, she is so clever. The other day she was sitting on the throne, and they say that isn't so much fun either, and when she happened to hum a song, and it was just this: "Why shouldn't I get married?" Well, there's something in that, she said, and so she wanted to marry, but she wanted a husband who could answer whenever he was spoken to, not one only who stood and looked haughty, for that is so tiresome. And so she had all her maids of honor drummed together, and when they heard what she wanted, and they were very glad. "I like that," they said. "That's what I was thinking myself the other day." "You may be sure that every word I am telling you is true," said the crow. "I have a tame sweetheart who goes around freely in the castle, and she told me everything." Of course, the sweetheart was a crow, for birds of a feather flock together, and a crow always finds a crow. The newspapers were published at once with a border of hearts and the princess's initials. One could read in them that every young man who was good-looking might come to the castle and speak with the princess, and he who spoke as if he belonged there, and who spoke the best, the princess would choose for her husband. Yes, indeed. You can believe me. It's as true as I sit here. People came flocking in. There was a pushing and running to and fro, but nobody had any luck the first or second day. They could all talk well enough when they were out in the street, but when they entered at the palace gates and saw the guards in silver, and went up the staircase and saw the lackeys in gold, and the big lighted halls, they were staggered. And when they stood before the throne, on which the princess sat, they could say nothing except the last word she had said, and she didn't want to hear that again. It was just as if the people in there had swallowed snuff and had fallen into a trance till they got into the street again, and then they could talk very fast enough. There was a whole row of them from the town gate to the palace gate. I went in myself to see it. They both got hungry and thirsty, but in the palace they didn't get as much as a glass of lukewarm water. A few of the wisest had brought bread and butter with them, but they wouldn't share it with their neighbor, for they thought, "Well, let him look hungry, and the princess won't have him." But little Kay, what of little Kay? When did he come? Was he among the crowd? Hello, Nebby, welcome in. Can we get a shout out for Nebulana here? It's good to see you, dearie. Always lovely to have you with us. Wait, we're just coming to him. On the third day, a small person without horse or carriage marched cheerfully right up to the castle. His eyes sparkled like yours. He had fine long hair, but his clothes were shabby. Oh, that was Kay. Oh, then I have found him. And she clapped her hands. He had a little knapsack on his back. No, that must have been his sled, for he went away with the sled. That may well be, for I did not look very closely, but this much I know from my tame sweetheart, that when he came in the palace gate and saw the lifeguards in silver and went up the staircase and saw the lackeys in gold, he wasn't the least bit put out. He nodded to them and said, "It must be tedious to stand on the stairs. I'd rather go inside." I'm glad you're enjoying hearing my voice, Nebby. Thank you. Necromancer, I don't think that quite worked. Let me get the shout out taken care of here. If you're not already familiar with Nebby, she does some fantastic pixel artwork and is... I don't think that worked either. There we are. That did work. So definitely check out Nebby. She does some really fantastic pixel artwork. She is doing commissions, last time I checked, for little pixel art marionettes, which are wonderful to use in a variety of circumstances. But her voice is also very calming, very fun. It's just a generally lovely time to spend with Nebby when she's live. So if you get a chance to chop in and join one of her streams, strongly recommend you do so. Welcome in, Nebby, and thank you for joining us. Alright, let's see here. We have left off... He nodded and said to them, It must be tedious to stand on the stairs. I'd rather go inside. Inside the rooms were bright with candles. Privy councillors and excellency went barefooted and carried gold dishes. Anybody might have been impressed. His boots creaked perfectly terribly, and still he wasn't scared. I'm sure it was Kay. I know he had new boots on. I've heard them creak in Grandmother's room. Oh yes, they certainly creaked. And he went boldly to the princess herself, who sat on a pearl that was as big as a spinning wheel, and all the court ladies with their maids and their maids' maids, and all the cavaliers with their valets and their valets' valets who keep a boy were standing around, and the nearer they stood to the door, the prouder they looked. You can hardly look at the valet's boy, who always wears slippers, he stands so haughtily in the doorway. Oh, it must be awful. And Kay got the princess anyway? If I had been a crow, I would have married her myself, although I'm engaged. They say he spoke as well as I can when I speak the crow language. I heard that from my tame sweetheart. He was cheerful and agreeable, and he had not come to woo, but only to hear the wisdom of the princess, and he liked it, and she liked him. Oh yes, that was certainly Kay. He was so clever he could do mental arithmetic up to fractions. Oh, won't you lead me to the castle too? Oh, that's easily said, but how are we to manage it? I'll talk it over with my tame sweetheart. She can probably advise us, because I must tell you that little girl like you will never be let in the regular way. Oh yes, I will. When Kay hears that I'm there, he'll come out right away and bring me in. Well, wait for me at the stile over there, said the crow, and it wagged its head and flew away. It was already late in the evening when the crow came back. Rapier wants to go caw-caw? Oh, well, I don't see anything wrong with that. Speaking crow does sound like a lovely time, Necromancer. I don't disagree. Caw-caw, the crow said. She wants to be remembered to you many times, and here's a little loaf for you. She took it from the kitchen. There's plenty of bread there, and you must be hungry. You can't possibly get into the palace. Your feet are bare, you know, and the guards in silver and lackeys in gold would not allow it. But don't cry, you'll get there anyway. My sweetheart knows a little back staircase that leads up to the bedrooms, and she knows where she can get the key. Hello, Notaic. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're just reading through the Snow Queen. And they went into the garden, into the great avenue, where one leaf was falling after another, and the lights were put out in the palace one after the other. The crow led Gerda to the back door, which stood ajar. Oh, how Gerda's heart beat with a fear and longing. It was just as if she had been going to do something wicked, and yet she only wanted to know if it was little Kay. Yes, and it must be he. His thoughtful eyes and his long hair were so clear in her memory, she could almost see him smile as he'd smiled at home when they sat among the roses. He would certainly be glad to see her, to hear what a long distance she had come for his sake, to know how sorry they had been at home when he did not come back. Oh, what fear and joy she felt. Now they were on the staircase. A little lamp was burning on a cupboard, and in the middle of the floor stood the tame crow, turning her head in every direction and looking at Gerda, who curtsied as her grandmother had taught her to do. My betrothed has spoken to me very favorably of you, my little lady, said the tame crow. Your vita, as they call it, is very moving. Will you take the lamp? Then I will precede you. We will go straight up. In that way we shan't meet anybody. I feel as if someone were coming after us, said Gerda, and something rushed by her. It seemed like shadows on the wall, horses with flying manes and thin legs, hunters and ladies and gentlemen on horseback. Those are only dreams, said the crow. They are coming to take the thoughts of our noble masters out hunting. That's all the better, because then you can look at them more closely in their beds. but I hope that when you come to honor and dignity, you will have a grateful heart." "I wouldn't talk about that," said the crow from the wood. Now they came to the first large room. It was hung with rose-colored satin, and artificial flowers were worked on the walls, and here the dreams already came flitting by them, but they moved so quickly that Gerda could not see the high-born lords and ladies. Each room was more splendid than the last. One might well be taken aback. Now they were in the bedroom. Here the ceiling was a large palm tree with leaves of glass, of costly glass, and in the middle of the two beds hung on a thick stalk of gold, and each of them looked like a lily. One of them was white, and in that lay the princess. The other was red, and in that Gerda was going to look for little Kay. She bent one of the red leaves aside, and she saw a brown neck. Oh, that was Kay! She called out his name quite loud and held the lamp toward him. The dreams rushed into the room. Again on horseback, he woke up, turned his head, and it was not little Kay. Only the prince's neck was like him, but he was young and good-looking, and the princess peered out from the white lily and asked who was there. Then little Gerda wept and told her whole story, and all that the crows had done for her. "You poor child," said the prince and princess, and they praised the crows and said they were not angry with them at all, but the crows were not to do it again. However, they should be rewarded. "Do you want to be free?" asked the princess, "or will you have fixed appointments as court crows, with all the kitchen leftovers?" And the two crows bowed and begged for fixed appointments, for they thought of their old age, and said, "It is a good thing for us to have something for the old man," for that was the way they put it. And the prince got up out of his bed and let Gerda sleep in it, and he couldn't do more than that. She folded her little hands and thought, "How good men and animals are," and then shut her eyes and went quietly to sleep. All the dreams came flying in again, looking like angels, and they drew a little sled on which Kay sat nodding, but all this was only a dream, and therefore it was gone again as soon as she woke up. The next day she was dressed up from head to foot in silk and velvet, and she was asked to stay in the castle and have a good time, but she only wanted a little carriage with a horse to draw it and a pair of little boots, and she would drive out again into the wide world and find Kay. And she not only got boots, but a muff. She was dressed so prettily, and when she was ready to go, a coach made of pure gold stopped before her door. Upon it shone like a star the coat of arms of the prince and princess. Coachman, footmen, and outriders, for there were outriders too, sat on horseback with gold crowns upon their heads. The prince and princess helped themselves into her carriage and wished her all good fortune. The forest crow, who was now married, went with her the first 3 miles, and he sat by Gerda's side, for he could not stand riding backward. The other crow stood in the doorway, flapping her wings. She didn't come with them, for since she had a fixed appointment and too much to eat, she suffered from a headache. Inside the coach was lined with sugar biscuits, and in the seat there were gingerbread nuts and fruit. "Goodbye, goodbye," cried the prince and princess, and little Gerda wept and the crow wept. So they went on for the first 3 miles, and then the crow said goodbye, and that was the saddest parting of all. The crow flew up on a tree and beat his black wings as long as he could see the coach, which shone like the bright sunshine. Oh dear, I have run out of water. Right at the 5th story too. We are going to take just a very brief moment here so that I can get some fresh water. Hopefully I will be back in less than a minute. But in the meanwhile, please behave yourselves. Thank you all very much for your patience with me. I know it can be just a little bit awkward when we have to take those breaks, but I'm also very glad that you've stuck around. Hello, Issei, welcome in. I hope you're enjoying your time here with us. It's good to see you there, dearie. While we're at it, and we're just kind of on the chapter break here, let's go ahead and give a shout out to Notaic. I know Notaic was doing, I want to say it was Repo earlier today here. I'd love to hear how that went. So, let's give a shout out to Notaic. Good time, good companionship. I believe Notaic streams are 18+, so do be aware of that if you decide to follow. But yeah. So, with that, let's roll into the 5th story, The Little Robber Girl. They drove through the dark forest, but the coach gleamed like a torch, dazzling the eyes of the robbers so that they couldn't bear it.
"That is gold! That is gold!"
they shouted, and rushed forward and seized the horses, killed the postilions, the coachman, and the footman, and then pulled little Gerda out of the carriage.
"Oh, she is fat. She is pretty. She has been fattened with nut kernels,"
said the old robber woman. I'm gonna try that again.
"She is fat. She is pretty. She has been fattened with nut kernels,"
said the old robber woman, who had a long, stiff beard and eyebrows that hung over her eyes.
"She's as good a little pet lamb. My, how good she'll taste."
And she drew out her shining knife that gleamed in a horrible way. "Ouch!" screamed the old woman at the same moment, for her own daughter, who hung at her back, bit her in the ear. She was a wonder she was so wild and rough.
"You nasty brat!"
screamed the old woman, and she didn't have time to butcher Gerda. "I want her to play with me," said the little robber girl. "She shall give me her muff and her pretty dress and sleep with me in my bed." And then she bit her mother again, so that the robber woman jumped high in the air and turned right around, and all the robbers laughed and said, "Watch her, she's dancing with her brat." "I want to get into the carriage," said the little robber girl. Oh, you were playing Outlast Trials. Okay. Sounds like fun, but also very much not something for younger ones. And she must and would have her own way, because she was so spoiled and so stubborn, and she and Gerda sat in the carriage and drove over stock and stone deep in the forest. The little robber girl was as big as Gerda, but stronger and more broad-shouldered, and she had a brown skin, her eyes were quite black, and they looked almost mournful. She put her arms around little Gerda and said, "They shan't kill you as long as I am not angry with you. I suppose you are a princess?" "No," said little Gerda, and she told them everything that had happened to her and how fond she was of little Kay. The robber girl looked at her seriously, nodded slightly, and said, "They shan't kill you even if I do get angry with you, for then I will do it myself." And then she dried Gerda's eyes and put her 2 hands into the beautiful muff that was so soft and warm. Now the coach stopped, and they were in the courtyard of a robber castle. It was cracked from top to bottom. Ravens and crows flew out of the open holes, and big bulldogs, each of whom looked as if he could swallow a man, jumped high up, but they didn't bark, for that was forbidden. Ray Pierre needs an Oblivion fix, but there's so much to do. Yeah, fixing Bethesda games can take quite a bit of work from what I understand. In the large, old, smoky hall, a bright fire burned on the stone floor. The smoke drifted along under the ceiling and tried to find a way out. A big cauldron of soup was boiling, and hares and rabbits were roasting on the spit. "You shall sleep tonight with me and all my little animals," said the robber girl. They got something to eat and drink, and then went to a corner where the straw and rugs were spread out. Above these sat on laths and perches more than 100 pigeons that all seemed asleep, but they turned a little when the two girls came. "They all belong to me," said the little robber girl, and she quickly seized one of the nearest, held it by the legs, and shook it so that it flapped its wings. "Kiss it," she cried, and beat it in Gerda's face. "Here are my wood rascals," she kept on, pointing to a number of laths that had been nailed in front of a hole in the wall. "Those are wood rascals, those two. They fly away at once if one doesn't keep them well locked up. And here's my old sweetheart, Ba." And she pulled out by the horn a reindeer that was tied up and had a polished copper ring around its neck. We have to keep him tight too, or he'd run away from us. Every evening I tickle his neck with a sharp knife, and he's very frightened at that." Clothes in a soup store, you feel? Why are you looking for clothes in a soup store? Oh yeah, OT definitely may not be a kid-friendly game. Yeah, I'm gonna guess not. And the little girl pulled out a long knife from a cleft in the wall and let it glide over the reindeer's neck. The poor creature kicked out its legs, and the little robber girl laughed and pulled Gerda into bed with her. Do you want to take the knife to bed with you? Asked Gerda, and looked in a rather frightened way. "I always sleep with a knife. You can never tell what's going to happen. But now, tell me again what you told me just now about little Kay and why you went out into the wide world." Poor moose. Oh yeah, kids, don't play Minecraft. Oh dear, why would you? I don't understand why people play Minecraft. I only understand that people do play Minecraft. And you know what? Fair enough. It's important to have things that you like and that you enjoy. And Gerda told it again from the beginning, and the wood pigeons cooed above them in their cage, and the other pigeons slept. The little robber girl put her arm around Gerda's neck, held her knife in the other hand, and slept so that one could hear her. But Gerda couldn't close her eyes at all. She didn't know whether she was going to live or die. The robbers sat around the fire singing and drinking, and the old robber woman turned somersaults. It was an awful sight for the little girl. Then the wood pigeons said, "Coo, coo, we have seen little Kay. A white hen was carrying his sled. He sat in the Snow Queen's carriage, which drove low over the forest as we lay in our nests. She blew upon us young pigeons, and all died except us two. Coo, coo." Ray Pierre loves Minecraft, and doing Oblivion crimes in Minecraft gets fun. I see. As well as doing a one-slur empire. What is a one-slur empire, Ray Pierre? "Oh, what are you saying up there? Where is the Snow Queen traveling? Do you know anything about it?" "She was probably traveling to Lapland, for there they always have ice and snow. Ask the reindeer who is tied up with the cord."
"There is ice and snow there, and a lovely place it is,"
said the reindeer.
"There you run free in great glittering valleys. There the Snow Queen has her summer tent, but her strong castle is up toward the North Pole, on that island." Apparently Fern also likes Minecraft, but is also going to bed. That's totally fine, bud. You get some good sleep. Thank you for letting me know. "There you run free in great glittering valleys. There the Snow Queen has her summer tent, but her strong castle is up toward the North Pole. On that island it's called Spitzbergen."
"Oh, Kay, little Kay." "Now you'll be quiet," said the robber girl, "or you'll get my knife in your stomach." In the morning, Gerda told her all that the wood pigeons had said, and the robber girl looked quite serious and nodded her head and said, "It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Forests will be barren, the soil segregated with potatoes and carrots, machines built to obliterate enemies, and money. Lots and lots of money." Oh, yeah, that sounds like a one-slur empire, alright. Do you know where Lapland is? She asked the reindeer.
Who should know better than I?
The animal said, and its eyes sparkled in its head.
I was born and bred there. I played in the snowfields there.
Listen, said the robber girl to Gerda. You see, all our men have gone away. Only Mother is here still, and she'll stay. But toward noon she drinks out of the big bottle, and then she takes a little nap, and then I'll do something for you. Now she jumped out of bed, rushed over around her mother's neck, and pulled her beard, crying, "Good morning, Mother, my own sweet nanny goat." And her mother flipped her nose till it was red and blue, but it was all done for pure love. Your homies get surprised because once you find a village, it's Jover? Jover? What does Jover mean? When the mother had drunk out of the bottle and was taking a little nap, the robber girl went to the reindeer and said, "I have a queer feeling that I'd like to tickle you a few more times with the knife, for you are very funny then. But it doesn't matter. I'll untie your rope and help you out so that you can run to Lapland, but you must use your legs well and carry this little girl to the palace of the Snow Queen, where her playfellow is. You've heard what she told me, for she spoke loud enough, and you were always listening." The reindeer jumped high for joy. The robber girl lifted little Gerda on its back and had the forethought to tie her on and even to give her a little cushion as a saddle. Gen Z language gets the eldritch here and there. It's a funny way of saying it's over. I see. Well, I hope it's over in a way that you enjoy. Alright, let's see here. The reindeer jumped high for joy. The robber girl lifted little Gerda onto its back and had the forethought to tie her on and give her a little cushion as a saddle. "It doesn't matter. There are your fur boots. It's going to be cold. But the muff I'm going to keep. That's much too pretty. Still, you're not going to be cold for all that. Here's my mother's big mittens. They'll reach right up to your elbows. Now your hands look just like my ugly mother's." And Gerda wept for joy. "I can't bear to see you whimper," said the little robber girl. "Now, you just ought to look very happy, and here are 2 loaves of bread and a ham for you, so you won't be hungry." These were tied on the reindeer's back. The little robber girl opened the door, coaxed in all the big dogs, and then cut the rope with her sharp knife and said to the reindeer, "Run now, but take good care of the little girl." And Gerda stretched out her hands with the big mittens toward the little robber girl and said, "Goodbye." And the reindeer ran over the stock and stone, away through the great forest, over marshes and steppes as quickly as it could go. The wolves howled, and the ravens screamed, "Whiz, whiz! It is set up in the sky. It looks as if it sneezed red."
"Those are my old northern lights," said the reindeer. "Look how they glow."
And then it ran on faster than ever, day and night. The loaves were eaten, and the ham too, and then they were in Lapland. Rapierre's empire grows and it gets lonely sometimes, so Necromancer will share being the court jester. I love it. Mordred agrees that Gen Zs sound unintelligible at times, and hello, welcome in, Mordred. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us here tonight. And with that, we come to the 6th story, The Lap Woman and the Finn Woman. Interesting that there's a distinction being drawn between Lapland and Finland in this. Normally I think of Lapland as the northern part of Finland. But, well, the more you learn, I suppose. The slang tends to be unintelligible, that's just how it works. I suppose that is the case. I'm just used to my own slang. Redesigning yourself to have an inverted tricorn hat to make a Leaf Pirate Jester hat. Oh my, that sounds like an interesting design. And it means you should get to share a tiny boat together. Ooh, I do like sharing tiny boats. That's fun. At a little hut they stopped. It was a pitiful place. The roof sloped down to the ground, and the door was so low that the family had to creep on their stomachs when they wanted to go in or out. Nobody was home except an old Lap woman cooking fish on a fish oil lamp, and the reindeer told Gerda's whole history, but it told its own first, for this seemed to the reindeer the more important of the two. Gerda was so overcome with the cold that she could not speak. "Oh, you poor things," said the Lap woman. "You've got a long way to run yet. You must go more than 100 miles to the Finnmark, for the Snow Queen is there, staying in the country and burning Roman candles every day. I'll write a few words on a dried codfish, for I have no paper, and I'll let you that as a letter for the Finn woman. She can give you better information than I." And when Gerda had been warmed and refreshed with food and drink, the Lap woman wrote a few words on a dried codfish, and telling Gerda to take care of it, tied her again on the reindeer, and the reindeer galloped away. Whiz, whiz, something said high in the air. The whole night long the most beautiful blue northern lights were burning. And they got to the Finnmark and knocked on the chimney of the Finn woman, for she didn't even have a door. In here it was so hot that the woman herself went around almost naked. She was small and muddy looking. She at once loosened little Gerda's dress and took off the mittens and boots, otherwise it would have been too hot for her to bear. Then she laid a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the codfish. She read it 3 times, and then she knew it by heart and put the fish into the kettle, for it was eatable, and she never wasted anything. You'll send me later. For now, you're going to art and listen. Well, wonderful. Now, the reindeer told its own history, and then little Gerda's, and the Finn woman blinked with her clever eyes, but said nothing.
"You are very clever," said the reindeer. "I know you can tie all the winds in the world together with a bit of thread. If the seaman unties one knot, he has a good wind. If he unties the second, it blows hard. But if he unties the third and the fourth, the wind tears the trees in the forest up by the roots. Won't you give the little girl a draught, so she may get the strength of 12 men and overcome the Snow Queen?" "The strength of 12 men? That would help a lot," said the Finn woman. Legal, hello and welcome in. I hope you're doing well, dear bear. It's really good to see you. Big hug for you, dearie. Thank you for joining us tonight. And the Finn woman went to the shelf, took down a big rolled up skin and unrolled it. Strange letters were written on it, and the Finn woman read until the water streamed down her forehead. But the reindeer again begged so hard for little Gerda, and Gerda looked at the Finn woman with such beseeching eyes full of tears that she began to blink again with her own, and drew the reindeer into a corner and whispered to it, while she laid fresh ice on its head. Reki, hello, welcome in. I hope you're having a good time here, dearie. Do we have a mod in the chat who can shout out Reki for me? Reki is an 18+ streamer, somebody who has been relatively new here and just made affiliate recently. Faye've been doing fantastically with working on networking. I've seen quite a bit of what Faye've posted on Blue Sky, and even gotten to join in for some of her streams here. It's a grand time, and so if you are eligible, definitely go and check Reki out. Let me get that shout out taken care of here. And there we are. Reki, welcome in and thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you being along. Hope you're enjoying the story so far. Naruto, welcome in. Thank you for coming by to say hello. Hope you have a good time with the rest of your nights. Yes, hello Reki. Welcome in.
let's see here. Where did I leave off? Who is speaking in this paragraph? I'm guessing it is the Finn woman. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Legal. Hydration complete. Little Kay is certainly with the Snow Queen and finds everything there to his taste and liking and thinks it the best place in the world, but that is because he has a splinter of glass in his eye and a little grain of glass in his heart. They must be got out, or he will never be a human being again, and the Snow Queen will keep her power over him. Oh, thank you for the stretchies, Legal. Really good to check my posture here. Oh. Stretchies complete. And squats, I see. Apparently we're not going to be moving quickly through this here. You're going now, Nebby. Well, thank you very much for joining in. I hope you get to have plenty more comfy vibes with whatever it is you need to attend to now. It's always lovely to see you. Alright, squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Snow Queen, what the heck? You thought that she was cool? Well, she kidnapped Kay like 4 books ago. You like vibing to the story despite being lost? Oh dear, I'm sorry that you've been having trouble following it. I might have to find a way to make it a little easier for people to follow things one of these nights. That said, squat's complete, and let's see if we can resume here.
But can't you give something to little Gerda so she will have power over all this?
I can give her no greater power than she has already. Don't you see how great it is? Don't you see how men and animals have to serve her, and how well she gets along in the world on her bare feet? We mustn't tell her about her power. It is in her heart. It is in her being a sweet and innocent child. If she can't reach the Snow Queen herself and get the glass out of little Kay, we can be of no use. 2 miles from here, the Snow Queen's garden begins. You can carry the little girl there. Set her down by the big bush that stands with the red berries in the snow. And no gossiping, but hurry up and get back here. And then the Finn woman lifted little Gerda onto the reindeer, which ran as fast as it could. It's okay. Let's say your tension goes away if you need to handle some emergencies. That's totally fine. I understand, Rapier. Nateik, I'm glad you're having a comfy time. And then the Finn woman lifted Gerda onto the reindeer, which ran as fast as it could. Oh, I didn't get my boots. I didn't get my mittens. She soon noticed that the cutting cold, but the reindeer didn't dare to stop. It ran till it came to the big bush with red berries. There it set Gerda down and kissed her on the mouth, and the big bright tears ran down the creature's cheeks. Then it ran back as fast as it could. There stood poor Gerda without shoes, without gloves, in the middle of the terrible ice-cold Finnmark. She ran forward as fast as she could. A whole regiment of snowflakes came, but they didn't fall down from the sky, for that was quite bright and shining with the northern lights. The snowflakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came, the larger they grew. Gerda still remembered how large and strange they had seemed when she looked at them through the magnifying glass, but here they were certainly much bigger and much more terrible. They were alive. They were at the outposts of the Snow Queen, and had the queerest shapes. A few looked like ugly, large porcupines, others like whole knots of snakes sticking out their heads, and others like little fat bears whose hair stood on end. All were brilliantly white, and all were living snowflakes. Then little Gerda said the Lord's Prayer, and the cold was so intense that she could see her own breath. It came out of her mouth like smoke. Her breath got thicker and thicker and formed itself into bright little angels who grew and grew wherever they touched the earth, and all had helmets on their heads and shields and spears in their hands. Their number increased more and more, and when Gerda had finished her prayer, a whole legion stood around her and struck with their spears at the awful snowflakes so that these were shattered into 1,000 pieces, and little Gerda went forward, safe and brave. The angels stroked her hands and feet, and then she felt the cold less and walked quickly on to the Snow Queen's palace. But now we must see what Kay is doing. He certainly wasn't thinking of little Gerda, and least of all that she was standing in front of the castle. And so we come to the 7th story. What happened in the Snow Queen's castle, and what happened afterward. The walls of the castle were drifting snow, and the windows and doors were the cutting winds. There was more than 100 halls, and the snow drifted. The largest stretched for many miles. The strong northern lights illuminated them all, and they were so big, so empty, so icily cold, and so dazzling. No fun was ever here, not as much as a little bear dance where the wind could have blown a trumpet and the ice bear walked in on their hind legs and had elegant manners. Never a little card party with the slaps on the jaw and give me your paw. Never any little coffee gossip among the White Fox ladies. Empty, vast, and cold were the halls of the Snow Queen. The northern lights flamed so punctually that one could figure out where they were going to be highest and lowest. In the middle of this empty, endless snow hall was a frozen lake. It had cracked into 1,000 pieces, but each piece was so accurately like the rest that it was a perfect work of art. And in the middle of the lake sat the Snow Queen when she was at home. And then she said that she sat in the mirror of reason, and that this was the only one and the best in the world. No fun allowed indeed, Necromancer. You're not wrong. Little Kay was quite blue with cold, indeed almost black, but he didn't notice it, for she had kissed the cold shivers away from him, and his heart was almost like a lump of ice. He dragged a few sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro, joining them together in all kinds of ways, for he wanted to do something with them. It was like our little tablets of wood which we laid together to form figures, what we call a Chinese puzzle. Kay also was making figures, the cleverest of all. It was the ice game of reason. In his eyes, these figures were very remarkable and of the highest importance. That was because the pieces of glass sticking in his eye. He made figures that spelled out the whole written word, but he could never manage to spell out the one word he wanted. The word eternity. And the Snow Queen had said, "If you can figure this puzzle out, you shall be your own master, and I will give you the whole world, and a pair of new skates." But he could not. "Now, I'll fly away to the hot countries," said the Snow Queen. "I will go and look into the black pots. These were called volcanoes, Etna and Vesuvius as they are called. I'm going to whiten them a little. That's necessary. That's good after lemons and grapes." And the Snow Queen flew away, and Kay sat all alone in the large, empty hall that stretched for miles, and looked at his pieces of ice, and thought so hard that he creaked inside. He sat quite stiff and still. One would have thought he was frozen to death. Then it was that little Gerda stepped into the castle through the gate of cutting winds, but she said an evening prayer, and the winds lay down as if to sleep, and she stepped into the big, empty, cold halls. Then she saw Kay. She knew him. She fell on his neck, hugged him tight, and called out, "Kay! Dear little Kay, at last I have found you." But he sat quite still, stiff and cold. Then little Gerda wept hot tears. They fell on his breast. They pressed into his heart. They thawed the lump of ice and consumed the little piece of glass in it. He looked at her and sang the hymn. The roses in the valley grow, where we shall once the Christ child know. Then Kay burst into tears. He wept so that the splinter of glass rolled out of his eye. Now he recognized her and cried with joy, Gerda, dear little Gerda, where have you been all this time? And where have I been? He looked all around him. How cold it is here, how large and empty. And he clung to Gerda, and she laughed and wept for joy. It was so wonderful that even the pieces of ice around them danced for joy, and when they were tired and lay down, they formed themselves just into the letters which the Snow Queen had said he must discover to be his own master, and to get to the whole world, and a new pair of skates. And Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they bloomed pink. She kissed his eyes, and they shone like her own. She kissed his hands and feet, and he was well and strong. The Snow Queen might come home now. His letter of liberty stood written there in the shining pieces of ice. And they took one another by the hand and wandered out of the big castle. They talked about the grandmother and of the roses on the roof. And there they went. The winds rested and the sun broke out. And when they came to the bush with the red berries, the reindeer was standing there waiting. It had brought another young reindeer whose udder was full and who gave the children warm milk and kissed them on the mouth. Then they carried Kay and Gerda first to the Finn woman, where they warmed themselves in the hot room and found out how to go home. Then to the Lap woman, who had made her new clothes for them and put the sled in order. The reindeer and the young reindeer sprang at their side and followed them as far as the boundary of the country. Ricky, thank you very much for lurking. I'm glad you're here with us and hope you're enjoying. There the first green peeped out, and there they took leave of the two reindeer and the Lap woman. Goodbye, they all said, and the first little birds began to twitter. The woods had green buds, and out of it, on Beautiful Horse, which Gerda knew, for it was the one that had drawn her golden coach, a young girl came riding, with a shining red cap on her head and a pair of pistols in the holsters. This was the little robber girl, who had grown tired of staying at home, and wished to go first to the north, and that if she did not suit her, she would go in some other direction. She knew Gerda at once, and Gerda knew her too, and there was great joy. You're a great one to traipse around, she said to little Kay. I'd like to know if you're so good that people ought to run to the end of the world for your sake. But Gerda patted her cheeks and asked about the prince and the princess. They've gone to foreign countries, said the robber girl. But the crow? Why, the crow is dead. The tame one has become a widow and goes around with an end of black worsted thread around her leg. She takes on terribly, and it's all nonsense. But now, tell me what happened to you, and how you caught him. And Gerda and Kay told their story. Snip, snap, snurrabass, lure, said the robber girl, and she took them both by the hand and promised them that if she ever came through their town, she would come up and pay them a visit. And then she rode away into the wide world. But Gerda and Kay went hand in hand, and as they went, it was lovely spring, with green things and flowers. The church bells rang, and they knew the high steeples and the great town. It was the one in which they lived, and they went to grandmother's door, and up the stairs, and into the room where everything stood in the same place. The big clock was going tick-tack, and the hands were turning, but as they went through the door, they noticed that they had become grown-up people. The roses out on the roof gutter were blooming in open windows, and there stood the little children's chairs. and Kay and Gerda sat down on their own and held each other by the hand. They had forgotten the cold, empty splendor of the Snow Queen like a bad dream. The grandmother was sitting in God's bright sunshine and read aloud out of the Bible, "Except you become as little children, you shall be no wise enter into the kingdom of God." And Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and all at once they understood the old hymn, "Roses in the valley grow, where we the Christ child once shall know." There they both sat, grown up and yet children, children in their hearts, and it was summer, warm, delightful summer. And with that, we come to the end of the Snow Queen. Thank you very much to everyone who stayed with me through this. I know that we've got just a few minutes here to fill out, but I really appreciate everybody dropping in. Hope you've all had a good time. Let's see here. About 10 minutes? Yeah, I think we can find a way to make that work. There is... Let's see if I can find the correct page here. Because I believe this copy also has The Emperor's New Clothes, which is one of my personal favorites. Always a good time when you're here? Absolutely, Notaic. That was sweet, Necromancer. It is. There is a reason that the Snow Queen is such a classic. And it's so very different from anything that, like, Disney's been able to put out. Even including, you know, their Frozen and things like that, because it is different. Alright, so we've got the Ugly Duckling on page 150 if we want to go that route. But, we do have The Emperor's New Clothes on 99. Let's see if we can jump over there real quick. There we go. So, we can roll right on into The Emperor's New Clothes, a tale that I believe has a lot of significance to a lot of people. Excuse me. And rather than being sweet, this one's going to be silly. Many years ago, there lived an emperor who was so enormously fond of nice new clothes that he spent all his money trying to look really dressed up. He didn't care for his soldiers, didn't care for the theater, didn't care for driving in the park except for the chance to show off his new clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, and just as people say about a king, he is in council, so here they always said, the emperor's in the wardrobe. The big city where he lived was a very gay place. Crowds of visitors came every day, and one day 2 swindlers came. They pretended they were weavers, and said they knew how to weave the most gorgeous cloth you could imagine. Not only were their colors and patterns, they said, remarkably beautiful, but the clothes made of the stuff had the strange property that they became invisible to anyone who was unfit for the office he held, or who was stupider than the law allowed.
"Those would be nice clothes,"
thought the emperor.
"If I wore them, I could find out what men in my empire are not fit for the places they have. I could tell the clever from the stupid. Yes, that cloth must be woven for me at once."
And he gave the 2 swindlers a lot of money in advance to make them begin work. And they did put up 2 looms and pretended to be working, but they had nothing at all on their looms. They kept demanding the finest silk and the costliest gold. This they put into their own pockets and worked at the empty looms till late into the night.
"Now, I should really like to know how far they have got on with the stuff,"
thought the emperor, but he actually had a queer sensation in his heart when he thought that whoever was stupid or no good in his office couldn't see it. He believed indeed that he had nothing to fear for himself, but he wanted to send someone else first, just to see how matters stood. All the people in the whole city knew what peculiar power the stuff possessed, and they were all anxious to see how bad or stupid their neighbors were. What a diva? Absolutely. Pride goeth before the fall.
I will send my honest old cabinet minister to the weavers. He can best tell what stuff looks like because he's a sensible man, and nobody is better in his office than he is.
So the decent old minister went to the hall where the two swindlers sat working at the empty looms.
Mercy on us,
thought the old minister as he opened his eyes wide.
I can't see anything at all.
But he didn't say that. Both the swindlers begged him to be kind enough to come nearer and asked if he didn't think it was a lovely pattern in beautiful colors. They pointed to the empty loom, and the poor old minister went on opening his eyes, but he could see nothing, for there was nothing to see.
Dear me, could it be that I am stupid? I never thought that, and not a soul must know it. Am I not fit for my office? No, it will never do for me to tell that I couldn't see the stuff.
Well, haven't you anything to say about it? Said one of the weavers.
Oh, it is charming, perfectly darling,
said the old minister as he peered through his spectacles.
What a fine pattern and what colors, yes. I shall tell the emperor that I am very much pleased with it.
Well, we're very glad, said both the weavers, and then they named the colors and explained the strange pattern. The old minister listened carefully so that he could repeat it when he went back to the emperor, and so he did. Now the swindlers asked for more money and more silk and gold, which they said they wanted for weaving. They put everything into their own pockets, and not a thread was put on the loom, but they kept on working at the empty frames as before. The emperor soon sent another simple official to see how the weaving was going and if the stuff would soon be ready. He had no better luck than the first. He looked and looked, but as there was nothing to be seen, he could see nothing. Yes, isn't this a fine piece of stuff? Asked the two swindlers, and they pointed out and explained the handsome pattern which wasn't there at all. Welcome back, Soliloquy. I hope you had a good time.
I know I am not stupid, thought the man. It must be my good office, for which I am not fit. That's very queer, but I mustn't let anybody notice it.
And so he praised the stuff he didn't see, and expressed his pleasure at the beautiful colors and the charming pattern.
Yes, it's perfectly darling,
he said to the emperor. Squats, planks, stretchies, and a hydrate soliloquy. Thank you for coming over and taking care of me as you seek your, destitution, is it? Or have I got the word wrong? Well, there's the hydration. And we got the stretchies in. So next the squats, and then the plank. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Destitution. Wonderful. Oh, Baji, welcome in. Thank you for the hello. Bonjour. Good to see you. Alright, and we've got a plank to do. How many minutes is the plank? Is it 1 or 2? I just need to check that real quick here. Oh, that's odd. I don't see my own plank. Here it is. 1 minute. Okay, cool. We'll get you your minute here, and, yeah. Alright, so, this requires me to go onto the floor. I'm not actually leaving. Instead, I will probably sing a song, as I tend to do with this. So, I will see you all in just a moment here. Hey Siri, set a timer for 1 minute, please. Alright, that is going. Awesome. Alright. Johnny be fine and wants me for to wed. I would marry Johnny, but the father up and said, I'm sorry to tell you, daughter, but your mother never knew. Johnny is a son of mine, and so is him to you. Well, Patty be fair, Patty be fine, and wants me for to wed. And I would marry Patty, but my father up and said, I'm sorry to tell you, daughter, but your mother never knew. Patty too is a son of mine, and so is kin to you. But Jimmy be fair and Jimmy be fine, and wants me for to wed. And I... Here we are. Ah. Sorry about that. Let's, make sure that's not going to come back here in a moment. Alright. And I think, there we go. Find my chair again. Thank you for a minute of planking, helping me keep my body in working shape here. Soliloquy. Really appreciate it. And for the extra hydrate. Oh no, you lost your phone on the interstate? You benched 350 pounds and bruised a lot of your muscles? Oh dear. Also, I seem to be stuck facing the wrong way. Alright, let's try this again. Alright. That should be recalibrated. I hope. We'll find out in just a moment here. Ah, it's fine. It's fine. No reason to worry about it. Alright. All the people in the town were talking of the gorgeous stuff. The Emperor now wanted to see it for himself while it was still on the loom. With a whole crowd of chosen men, among whom were also the decent officials who had already been there, he went to the two cunning swindlers, who were there now, leaving with might and main without a fiber or thread. So many bruises, you're going for an ice bath? Oh no, take care of yourself, Soliloquy. I'm sorry that you're hurting there, dearie. Isn't it magnifique? Said both the good officials, who had been there already once. Will your majesty see what a pattern, what colors? And then they pointed to the empty loom, for they thought that the others could probably see the stuff.
What's this?
Thought the Emperor.
I can see nothing at all. This is terrible. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be Emperor? That would be the most dreadful thing that could happen to me. Oh, it is very pretty,
he said aloud.
It has our exalted approbation.
And he nodded in a contented way and gazed at the empty loom, for he wouldn't say that he couldn't see anything. His whole retinue looked and saw nothing, any more than the rest. But like the Emperor, they said, "That is pretty," and counseled him to wear these splendid new clothes for the first time at the great procession soon to take place. "It is magnifique, delicious, excellent," went from mouth to mouth, and they were all marvelously pleased. The Emperor gave each of the swindlers a cross to hang at his buttonhole and the title of Knight of the Loom. The whole night before the morning on which the procession was to take place, the swindlers were up and had more than 16 candles burning. The people could see that they were hard at work finishing the Emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the stuff down from the loom, they made cuts in the air with big scissors, they sewed with needles without thread, and at last they said, "Now the clothes are ready." The Emperor came himself with his noblest cavaliers, and the two swindlers lifted up one arm as if they were holding something and said, "See, here are the trousers, here's the coat, here's the cloak," and so on. It is as light as a spider's web. One would think one had nothing on, but that is just the beauty of it. "Yes," said all the cavaliers, but they couldn't see anything, for there was nothing there. "Does your Imperial Majesty please to condescend to undress?" said the swindlers. "Then we will put the new clothes on you here in front of the large mirror." The emperor took off his clothes, and the swindlers pretended to put on him each of the new garments, and they took him round the waist and seemed to fasten on something. That was the train, and the emperor turned round and round before the mirror.
"Oh, how well they look! How wonderfully they fit!
Everybody said, "What a pattern! What colors? What is a splendid dress!" "They're standing outside the canopy which is borne above your majesty in the procession," announced the headmaster of the ceremonies.
"Well, I'm ready, of course,"
said the emperor.
"Don't they fit me well?"
And he turned around again in front of the mirror because he wanted it to seem as if he were giving his fine clothes a good look. The chamberlains, who were to carry the train, groped with their hands on the floor, just as if they were picking up the mantle. Then they pretended to be holding something in the air. They didn't dare let anybody guess they couldn't see anything. So the emperor went in procession under the rich canopy, and everyone on the streets said, "Heaven! How matchless the emperor's new clothes are! What a lovely train his mantle has! What a miraculous fit!" No one would let it be known that he couldn't see anything, for that would have shown that he was not fit for his office, or was very stupid. Not any of the emperor's clothes had ever had such a success as these. "But he has nothing on," a little child cried out at last. "Dear me, listen to what the innocent says," said the father, and the people whispered to each other and what the child had said. "He has nothing on. A little child says he has nothing on." "But he has nothing on," said everybody at last. And the emperor shivered, for it seemed to him they were right. But he thought to himself,
"Oh, I must go through with the procession."
And so he carried himself still more proudly, and the chamberlains walked along, holding the train that wasn't there at all. Thank you once again to everybody who came out tonight. Thank you for our raid, Kibo 3. Hope you had a wonderful time here. Hope everybody has gotten to enjoy. We have reached the end of our session for tonight here, so it is time to raid out. Let me see if I can find somebody who is maybe doing some reading or something along those lines. The suggestions are a little under. Well, there is somebody who's doing some reading here. I'm not particularly familiar with them, and it looks like they've been going at it for a bit. Do we want to give that a try? Looks like they might be pretty close to wrapping up. So let's pick somebody a little closer to home here. You know what? I think we are going to raid out to a friend of the channel and good supporter. We'll go give Angel a proper raid here. So thank you once again to everybody who's joined in, and I think it is about time that we switched over to our parting song. I'm glad you've joined our stream today. Stream here ends, the stream here. But it's time to go our separate ways. Yes, it's time to end the stream here. Stream here ends, the stream here. Oh, stream here ends, the stream here. For the software's scuffed and the bit rate's low, and And it's time to end the stream here. Until next time, I'll be waiting.